Hello, I'm back with another video. The title of this video is Don't Let Them Brainwash You. The reason I'm making this video is because there's a series of myths we hear in the video game industry about Nintendo, and generally not just Nintendo, but other hardware manufacturers that are just, I mean, it's BS. It's BS. And they've tried to brainwash us with this, that tell us that it's raining outside when really they've gone on our roofs and are peeing, and they're saying it's raining, and they're peeing on us. And a lot of people have bought into this BS thing. And what precipitated this video was a article I read on the Nintendo Enthusiast by Chris Godwin. Very good. I'll link it in the description. You should read it before you comment or up or down anything I say in this video, because once you've read it, you will really... it puts things into stark contrast. These are things that we knew all along, that we, if you've been playing games for as long as I have, you know that certain things were just, like, that a lot of things that they've told us is bullshit. And, once you see reality, you begin to see things in a different light. So, these are just 3 things that are bullshit. Number 1. Nintendo is in danger of going out of business. They're doomed. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. Every time Nintendo has launched a new console, Western market analysts have said that they were doomed. What did people in the East say? Not a damn thing, because they know Nintendo in the East. But here in America, Nintendo has been doomed every time they've launched a new console. The NES, Nintendo is doomed. SNES, Nintendo is doomed. N64, Nintendo is doomed. GameCube, Nintendo is doomed. Wii, Nintendo is doomed. Wii U, Nintendo is doomed. I'll tell you right now, as a business owner, I wish my company was doomed like Nintendo, because every time someone says they're doomed, they just keep on rolling along and making money. I mean, I think my business is doomed like that. Which brings me to my second point. Nintendo's hardware is weak. Nintendo's hardware is weak. Okay, the original NES smoked its predecessor, the Atari. Okay? Now, I know what some people are going to say, but the Atari was... Look, let me tell you something. The same technology that was used to make the NES was available to the makers of the Atari. They just didn't want to put that type of energy or effort into a system. And so what we got were bleeps, bloops, bits, and bots. Okay, I made up the bots part, but you get what I'm saying, okay? Where you had to use your imagination in order to, a little dot on the screen. That's your man, that's your character. And then it evolved to where it looked kind of like a little fucked up stick figure. But we didn't care. But still, the music on an Atari, oh my god. Oh. Listening to an Atari made your ears bleed. And trust me, this is coming from someone who played E.T. on the Atari, Pitfall on the Atari, Pac-Man on the Atari, Q*bert on the Atari, and Centipede on the Atari, Snake on the Atari, Indiana Jones on the Atari, Adventure on the Atari, 1 and 2, Adventure Water and Adventure Earth. Kaboom on the Atari. Ooh, Defender, Joust, Pac-Man. Ugh. The Atari was clearly a terrible device. Okay? And you can't tell me it was because generally the same technology was being used in the NES. just a little bit more advanced for the time, but they could have done better. Okay. So the SNES was more advanced than the Genesis. Yes, it was. The Sega Genesis got its, like, in terms of sheer hardware power, the SNES kicked its ass. The N64 was more powerful than the PlayStation and the Xbox, the original Xbox. Okay, it was a very powerful system. Yeah, it used cartridges, but those cartridges were really friggin' powerful. Okay, instant loading times. Just it was a very powerful little system. The GameCube, oh god, the GameCube was the most powerful of all the systems. Yes, it kicked the PS2 and the Xbox One's ass. The Dreamcast was on par with it, but the Dreamcast had issues of its own. And then Sega died, and Xbox got into the market, and the GameCube was still more powerful than it was. The Wii was basically two GameCubes. So it was weaker than the Xbox One, a little bit weaker than the Xbox One, weaker than the Xbox One, and the PS3 smoked it. But the Wii kicked both their asses sales-wise. So, and now we've entered the Wii U, which people are saying is weak. But there's just one small problem with that statement. If the Wii U is weak, and the industry standard now is 1080p 60 frames per second, why is it that the Wii U has more 1080p 60 frame per second games on it than both the next gen PS4 and Xbox One? Answer me that! And the last myth that I'd like to deal with is Nintendo's online is terrible. Really? Is it? I find it to be perfectly adequate for my needs. People use Xbox Live as the barometer of online gaming. Is it? You pay for it, it gets hacked, or attempted to get hacked all the time. It has some of the worst users on it in the world. And yes, I'm going to go back to my example of my girlfriend who does play dude bro shooters. And as soon as people find out she's a girl, I mean, some terrible things have been said to her. She's filed complaints. I've read some of the shit she's printed out. I mean, some of those people on Xbox Live are sick. Okay, they are sick. They don't need to be playing games. They need to be someplace in a nice room with a nice vest and the room padded. Okay, so reading this article, I saw that that talks about how Nintendo's network is actually pretty damn good. You don't have the assholes that you have on PSN and Xbox Live. It's free. Nintendo's online doesn't allow for nickel and diming of useless DLC. You get a game, you get it, and you play it. Hands down, okay? You get fair market value. Indies don't have to pay to play, so they don't have to pay to get the first page. They don't have to go through a publisher like Xbox originally wanted. Nintendo isn't bending over backwards to kiss the asses of third parties, so you don't have to deal with a lot of bullshit that Sony and Microsoft do. So those weird ass season passes and specialty codes so you can use this certain item, you don't have to deal with on the Nintendo network. I personally like that. So we don't have lobbies. So we don't have, party chat. We'll get there. We'll get there. And don't let people say, well, Nintendo's just getting started. Nintendo had Nintendo TV. Remember back on the SNES? The Saddle of View. Sega had the Sega channel, and Nintendo had Nintendo TV, where you were friggin' downloading shit from your satellites through your cable into your thing. That was DLC before DLC on a console, before it became cool. So you know what? Those people who always say, oh, Nintendo's behind the times, fuck you, you don't know your history. Nintendo did the shit first, okay? The GameCube had online. The N64 in Japan had online. It had the DD could actually hook up to the internet. It was only released in Japan, and it never really hit the light of day, but it was there. So don't tell me Nintendo didn't do online, can't do online, won't do online. And you know what? When some assholes were doing some sick shit on the Nintendo network with the swap note and like sending kids weird shit and getting pedophiles were doing some sick shit, they shut the shit down. They said, you know what? We can't have that shit. And they shut it down. Xbox Live, motherfuckers threatening to rape women and come to their house and rape them to death. And you know what? They just let it go. Oh, and you have to jump through 50,000 hoops in order to report the shit. Sony charges you for free games that you can play as long as you pay the annual fee. And then as soon as you stop, the games are taken away. So you're renting. You're renting in perpetuity. But whatever. So, that leads me to my final point. 3 things you have to keep in mind about Nintendo. Whatever it is you hear from people about, oh, so-and-so did it, oh, it's so innovative. Nintendo innovates. They trailblaze, and other people steal them. Steal their ideas and get the credit for it. Number 1. Number 2, Nintendo, generally speaking, does things so that in a more proper way. For example, a lot of people say, well, I don't have, my friends, I live in a place where my friends can't come over to my house, and that's why I prefer online play. Online play should be an extension of local play. It should be a long-distance version of local play. If some of the things I've heard people say in online, not in MMOs or like on PC, first person, but on Xbox Live, oh god, if someone was sitting next to me and said that, I would knock them the fuck out. Hands down. And I'm not a violent person. I don't believe in physical violence. But some of the things these little bastards say, especially 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, 13-year-olds, say, I mean, I would beat the hell out of that kid. I hands down, you know, I grew up in a household where if I said something wrong, my parents would knock the fuck out of me. And I learned not to say it. I would do the same thing to these kids. I'm like, I'm not your parent, but you don't need to be saying that, and knock the fuck out of them. You do that enough and take away their Xbox. You do that enough, the little bastard will stop doing it maybe. I don't know. Just a thought. Be a parent. Be a parent. So, that leads me to my third point in conclusion about Nintendo. These myths about, you know, X, Y, and Z, they're all controlled by the hype, by the video game market industry in order to hype up their champions. And their champions are Microsoft and EA, these Western companies that have turned the industry into shit. This is why we get regurgitated shooter after regurgitated shooter after regurgitated shooter. How many times can you run down a hallway and shoot someone? How many times can you run in bombed out ruins and shoot an alien or an alien soldier or another soldier? I can't do something different. Well, that's the end of my video about busting myths. I will leave a link to my discussion thread down below. Leave any questions you might have for my Sunday Questionathon, which I will be doing. I might even do it live. I don't know. Depending on how I feel. Sunday, my Questionathon, so, you know, I need your guys' participation. Once again, any questions you want me to answer, they can be personal. I may or may not choose to answer them, but you can go for it. Take a roll of the die. I'll leave a link in the description for the article that prompted me to make this, and a link to the discussion thread where you can ask any questions you'd like for Sunday's Questionathon. Thank you and have a good day.